All right, for at least a minute now, we're going to pretend that I'm a student in this class. So this morning, amongst other things, when I went and got my email, I saw this thing here that said firstwebsite.zip, right? And the person, this Jeff Scott, says, "Good morning, to be explained in class." Well, it's being explained right now, okay? So I'm going to grab this right here. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to choose download. I don't think this is anything you don't all know already. All right, so it's now got a zip file right there. I'm going to right mouse click and drag it into my desktop. And when I let go, and this will be different depending on the type of machine you have, but mine immediately gives me an option to extract or unzip my file. All right, so I'm going to choose extract. I'll keep the name, first website is fine, so I'll use extract. So now on my, and I can close this now, but now on my, close that too for that matter, I've got a folder called first website. You all with me? Now I'm assuming you can do that however you have to do that. All right, now look on the screen if you would, because this is what's in there. We're going to use two images in this website. There's both images. All right. Here's all the text that we're going to have to put in, and I didn't realize it, but it's almost Part01, page 1, Part01, page 2. They're almost the same thing. So don't worry about that. It's fine. We'll worry about that when we get to that point. This is what it will eventually look like. Our homepage is going to look like this. Again, if you don't like my colors, use your own colors. It's totally fine. All right. Then our About page is going to look like this. A lot like the home page, it's the same text. There's a little more text that got put in it, but it doesn't have the pictures, or the picture. Then we'll have an MPG page. Where is that one? I guess I thought I copied that one too, but there it is. That one we're not going to do for now because it involves forms. So we'll come back to this website in chapter 11 and we'll put this stuff in. Okay, I don't want to confuse you. For now, what we'll do is we'll put this up here, just MPG. We won't even say jQuery. Don't worry about that. We'll put the image in. Okay? And then finally, for our contact page, again, that's chapter 11. We're really not going to hit on this one until we talk about JavaScript, because that's programming. All right? It's not hard programming, but it's programming. But this one, we're not going to do any of this yet. We're just going to put contact us. You see what I'm saying? So 2 of these 4 pages will literally take us seconds to do. What we're going to do is we're going to first create the home page. If I can find it. There it is. We're going to create this one. Now, when we create it, initially, it'll have no CSS. Since it'll have no CSS, it'll look crummy. And if we don't finish this today, we'll start on this tomorrow, and then we'll go into chapter 8. We only have 1 chapter tomorrow. My guess is by no later than 9:30 or so, you're going to have 2 hours to work on homework. All right, and I'll talk some more tomorrow about the homework, okay? All right, so now I've got this stuff. So it's like, where do I begin? All right. Well, the first thing we want to do is that I'm going to do, and the order in which you do this, it's going to depend. But I've got this thing called first website, and it's got this in there. You know what? To me, that's not part of my website. Are you with me? It's not technically part of my website. There's stuff in there I'm going to use, but it's not part of my website. All right? So I've got this thing in here that's called first website, which is fine, but I want to create a new folder. All right? So in this new folder, since one of the things we're going to put in it is miles per gallon, I'm going to call the new folder MPG. With me? For miles per gallon. We could call it anything in the world we wanted to, but I'm going to right mouse click in here, choose new folder, and I'm going to just call it MPG, all in lowercase. You could change the case, but I'm not going to. I'm going to make everything I'm doing in here, I'm doing in lowercase. All right. Now I'm going to open up this MPG folder, And I'm going to put a couple things in there right now. You've seen me do this already. First, I'm going to right mouse click, choose new folder, and put in a folder called CSS. All right. Then I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to put in another folder called JS. Now, I'm not going to make an images folder. Instead, I'm going to drag the images folder that I already have into here. Did you all hear that? Look on the screen, please. I already have that thing that I gave you called first website. So I'm going to open that and find my images folder and then drag it right onto my new folder and copy it there. There's other ways you can do it, but to me that's probably the simplest. All right. Now, if you fall behind, we'll see it today. We can get done and maybe we'll stop around 11:30 or so. Because I want it by tomorrow so everybody catches up. That's all. All right. So I've already got my images in here. There they are. There's just two of them. Okay? And there's nothing else in here. Everything is empty. I think you'd all agree with that. So I'm going to do two things first. First thing is I'm going to open up my CSS folder by double-clicking on it. Then I'm going to right mouse click, choose new, choose text document. You've seen this before. And I'm going to change the name of this to styles.css. Again, when I hit enter, it says you're about to change. It dings at me. And it says that you're about to change your extension. Do you really want to do that? Yes, I do. So I click yes. So that part's done. Everybody with me?
For some reason, I didn't get the extension notification.
Okay. Well, it may have saved it as a text file. Do you have this icon?
It's a different icon, yeah. Also delete that.
Yeah. The other way that you can do that, just so you know, and I think it'll take it. Let me see something once. So if we go in here, see if we try this. So if we highlight the whole thing, remove it, and put. I'm gonna just try hello. It won't take that. Well, remember when we did this yesterday when we went in with the extensions? Yours might still be.
It was my fault. I just
okay.
The,
okay.
text file out of there.
Okay, cool. All right, let me get rid of this then. Delete. Now the next thing I'm going to do. So right now, we should all have this here. We have a CSS folder with styles.css in it. We've got our images folder that we dragged over from the email I gave you. So it's got two pictures in it. And we've got an empty JS folder. All right. Now, I'd like you to please open up a browser window. Not that one. Open up a browser window. And let's go out to Normalize Dot Css. All right. There it is. Anybody have any problem with that? It's just, if you type in normalize.css, it pushes you over here to Nicholas at GitHub. He's the guy who created it. So click the download button, which gives you this. All right. Then with this, right mouse click on it and choose Save As. Now we've got to iterate over and find on our desktop this folder called MPG. There it is. All right. And I want to put it inside of the CSS folder. So we now have two files inside of our CSS folder. We have our empty styles.css and we have normalize. Again, if you fall behind, all right, I promise I won't go any more till like about 11:30 because I want everybody to be able to catch up. So if nothing else, watch what we're doing. All right. So if I look in here now, I now have in CSS, there's normalize.css, there's styles.css. All right. Then I want to break out of my CSS folder, so I'm back here, and I want to add my index.html file. Remember, not in any folder other than the MPG folder. So I'm going to right mouse click in here, choose new text document, and I'm going to put in here index.html. Please get used to your home page should be called index.html. That's just the standard. You will occasionally see, instead of index.html, because this also works, you will occasionally see index.htm, no L on the end. Several years ago, extensions could only be 3 characters long. That's where the HTM comes from. In fact, Mr. Gudmested, still, he's old school more than I am, which is hard to believe because he's half my age. But he still does it that way, that he calls his all HTM instead of HTML, which is totally fine. All right. Any questions on what we've done so far? All right. So now I've got my structures set up. Before, we always would right mouse click and open it in code. We can do that. But first, we're going out to the land of GitHub. All right? So the first thing we're going to do is in here, you're going to go out to github.com. I'm assuming you all set up an account. Yours will look different than mine, so don't worry if it does. It may prompt you for your password. And if you forgot it, I can't help you. But there's a lost password in there someplace that you can send it out to github.com and they'll send you a link so you can reset it. With the factorization, or that's not the right word, authentication that they have in there, they probably can't, they don't know what your password is either. So all they can do is send you a link so you can create a new one. All right? So I'm in here. Again, yours should look at least somewhat similar to this. You probably have nothing here. You two will, because you've got GitHub from last year, but the rest of you will have very little here, if anything. So if you look up on the screen, there should be a plus sign up in this black menu, way in the corner here. If you click the plus sign, one of the things you should be able to see there is new repository. All right? So click the plus sign, choose new repository. And says, oh, you want to make a new repository. What do you want to call it? You want to call it the same thing as the folder that we just used for the project. MPG in lowercase. Make sure you put it here. Make sure you put it there. I mean, if you just start typing and your cursor's not there, you're typing into a buffer someplace and you won't see it. All right? So, MPG. Notice I'm glad, it's available for me. If for some reason you had a GitHub account previously and you made a program called MPG, or a folder I should say, you would get that it wasn't available. If that happens, you could call it MPG2 or whatever. It's no big thing. All right? Now, the other stuff that's in here, I want you to get used to the way you're going to be doing it. Now, you may or may not be aware of this. I think you guys are. But Microsoft bought Git a little over a year ago. All right? As part of its plan to buy everything. And what they don't have, Amazon has. All right. It used to be in Git, all your repositories had to be public. They all had to be public, which meant they were available to the world. I'm keeping mine public. I want you to be able to see what I've done. Yours should always be private. So please make sure that you've got the button there for private checked. And the reason for that is, let's say we've got Bob Smith is in our class. And we know Bob Smith said B. Smith, his name out here, where mine is J.P. Scott Rankin. So his is R. Smith Rankin, or R.A. Smith Rankin. And Bob's really, really smart. And we've got mean Kyle in the class, who doesn't like to do anything. But since Bob's stuff is all public, Kyle can go out to his GitHub repository and copy anything he wants from there. I don't want you guys to be doing that. All right? You can copy from mine. That's what it's there for. So yours, again, should say you should choose the private one. Now, you can choose to add a README file. We're not going to, but you can. You can choose to add a git ignore file. And what that means is, with some languages, like these guys last semester took C#. All right? So we would actually go in there and we do the learn more, and we would say that we were using C#, I think it was, and there are certain files that are system files that it wouldn't add because there's no reason to add those. The more you add it, the bigger your repository gets. So if somebody else does what's called cloning or copies your repository, they get a bunch of stuff they really don't need. All right. There's also a license that you can put in. We're not going to do that either. So yours should look just like mine, except it's got your name here with MPG. You can put a description there. You really don't have to. And yours should say, you should have the private button clicked. If you've got that, click Create Repository. And ideally, your screen is going to look similar to mine once you do it. Now, if for some reason it doesn't, don't think you did something wrong. All right, you may have skipped a step or something. It's no big thing. We will get it to work for everybody. Now, it is asking here for your setup, and it says, do you want HTTPS or do you want SSH? I will tell you we will use HTTPS for everything. All right, it'll be just fine. It's already got the secure socket layer built in. That's the S. Now, I'm going to, you don't have to do anything with these, but I'm going to copy them. And I'm going to copy them to my clipboard, and I'm going to throw them onto here. Okay? You get this stuff every project you make. Did you hear me? You'll get this for every project you make. This, we don't need. You don't need that. All right, that's if you want to go in there and create a README file. We don't care. Now, this stuff that you see here, everything that's here is what you will use in your folder, in our MPG folder that we created. Some of these commands, some of them, and we don't need to add a README either, but we're going to put a period here. Some of these commands I already explained to you, where is it? Thought I had it open. There it is. Okay. You've already done the git minus version. You've already done this. We're about to go back and do this, but I don't want you to do it yourselves because I want to show you something first. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to do this, etc. And the order in which we do that isn't really going to matter because right now we've set up our GitHub repository. Are you all with me? We've set up our GitHub repository. And the last thing I'm going to say is if you look right here, this is the address on the internet where that repository lives. So it is HTTPS. It's out on github.com. In my case, it's JP Scott Rankin, and it's mpg.git. All right, yours should be something similar to that. All right, now we're going to leave this one up, but while I'm thinking of doing this, I think I'm trying to do it in the most straightforward way possible. All right, so let's minimize our screen here so we're back here. Okay, let's minimize so that we're back here. It's 10:40. I got 50 minutes to see how much of this stuff we can get done. I'll stop at 11:30. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is my MPG website that I've got right here. I want to open this thing up in code. All right. So I'm going to right mouse click on it, and I'm going to choose Open with Code. Now there's some Git stuff we have to do with this. We'll do that at the end. Did you hear me? We will do that at about 11:20 or 11:25. So all I did was open this up in code. You'll notice that right now, if you look up on the screen, if I click the arrow pointing to the right for CSS, it shows me my normalize, it shows me my styles file. If I do the one by images, it shows me the picture of the computer, or I don't know why I put computer, and the MPG. There's nothing in here, and there is our index.html file. Okay? So, what we're going to do first is we're going to build this homepage. It's not going to look very good because if we don't, I'm not that concerned with it. If we get everything done today but the CSS, we'll start with the CSS tomorrow. All right? That's totally fine. You know how we start these. We put an exclamation point in here, and we We're not there. We put an exclamation point, not in there, Jeff, in here, and we hit tab. Okay? We've talked about what this stuff means already. I'm not going to go into it right now, okay? And I'm not going to put any more meta tags in. We talked about the description tag and the keywords tag. I'm just going to leave those out. This is a simple website that we're creating. But I am going to come in and where it says document, I'm going to change this to MPG, put a pipe sign in, and say home, because this is my home page. You know as well as I do, if I run it right now, since there's nothing in the body, it'll bring up a blank page, and in the tab, it'll say MPG home, correct? Because we put nothing else in there. All right, I'm hoping that everybody got a chance to catch up. Now, what I'm going to do, it almost sounds counterintuitive to what we've done before, but this is the way I did it. So I'm going to put a div in here that basically is going to hold, I believe, everything that we put in here. So I'm going to put a div in here, and I'm going to say ID equal container. Because this is going to be, for lack of better words, this is going to be the container. This is going to be what holds everything on the page. All right? And the first thing I'm going to put in here is my header. We can call this whatever we want, but this is what I'm going to do. So there's my header, and I'm just going to call this miles per gallon website. If you don't like that, you can call it hello. It doesn't really matter. But since it is a header section, and since we do want it to hold some content, if you just want to put your name in there, totally fine. This right here where it says miles per gallon program, everybody see this? That is what's going to hold what previously had in there website review. That's what this is going to be. So next we're going to build this, the home, about, the MPG, and the contact. Now, since we are not putting any CSS in here, this is going to look really, really ugly. All these are going to be on their own line. That is to be expected. All right? So, after my header, I'm going to put in a nav. Now, I don't want to confuse you, but I do want you to know that sometimes people put the nav inside of the header section. So you'd have a nav section in a header section. Sometimes they put it outside. I do it sometimes one way and sometimes the other way. There's really no difference. The reason that I'm doing it like this is, again, if you remember where it says, currently says website review, but it's going to say miles per gallon website, that's a light blue. But I don't want my menu to be a light blue. So this was just an easier way of doing it. All right. So next, I'm going to put in, just what we talked about today, we're going to have an unordered list, and the list items are going to be our menu items. All right. So we're going to have an LI, if I can type, an LI that says, and in there a href equals this file, which is index.html. Try it again. And it's going to say, after this, I'm just going to put home in there. You can put it whatever you want. You can. That's typically what's used. We're going to have 4 of these to make my life easier. I'm going to copy this. So I've got 4 of them now. All right. And I'm going to change the second one to about and about. And I'll give you time. I'm not rushing through this at all. The next one will be MPG and MPG. And the last one will be contact, and contact. All right, so I'll give you a second to catch back up. So this is what we've done. This is our whole body so far. Okay, and not a bad time to do a file save. So that's what I did. You can do a Control S, or you can choose File up in the menu and choose Save. Now, even if you're still typing, please stop for a second and look up on the screen. That's what we have so far, and it doesn't look very good. And it will continue to not look very good. It's not a warning. I'm just telling you that's the way it is. All right? So don't worry about it, that it doesn't look good. It'll look much better once we put in the CSS. All right? Now, the good news is that with what we have to put in yet, most of the stuff you're going to copy from that stuff I gave you. So you're going to have to do very little typing. I did it like that on purpose, not because I'm the super great guy, but I didn't want you to have to type a lot. This wasn't supposed to be a keyboarding exercise. All right? So I'm taking for granted everybody's got at least this much in, up through the header. So I can go down a little bit on the screen here. All right, I'll keep that nav up there, so if you're still working on that, you'll be able to go and do that. Underneath the nav, I'm going to put in H1 tag, and I'm just going to have it say welcome. Oh, with an exclamation point. All right, now I'm not going to keep going back and running live server again. It would look just like it did before, except it would now have an H1 with welcome on it. That should make sense to everyone. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to put in the image. That's the image of the old man and the old woman next to one another. Okay. So I'm going to put in an image tag. In fact, I can type in IMG and hit tab, and there it puts that in for me. All right. And I'm going to say here a couple things. First, for the source, I'm going to say images / and it's the first one. It's computer-tn.jpg. All right. I'm also going to come down, and for my alt, I'm putting on a new line just because I want to make sure it doesn't go off the page. You don't have to do that. You can. You don't have to. I just want to make sure you can see everything. So for the alt, I put in here internet picture. And it's no big thing. I would usually put in a better description than that, but it's fine. But I want to be able to float this picture to the left. Did you hear me? Since I want to be able to float it to the left, it needs an ID. So I gave it an ID, and I just called it home picture. Not the greatest name, but it's just the one I chose. So I came down here, and I said ID equals home picture, like that. Okay? So if I go back here again and look at it, there's my site right now. Again, doesn't look very good. And by default, remember, static is the positioning, right? So it's just going down the page. Kind of what I'd expect right now as far as what it would look like. All right? Not only that, I can click up here on home because I'm there. If I click about or contact or MPG, I'm going to get errors because those pages don't exist yet. We're going to make those in just a minute. All right? Okay. So we're up to here. Now I'm taking for granted that you've all got the nav section done. So I'm going to move up to here. Again, if you've fallen behind, no problem. All right? So now, believe it or not, we only have to type in 4 or 5 more lines and we're done with this page. Okay? So I'm going to put in a paragraph, but I'm going to give it a class. I'm going to set the class equal to first page. Okay? So it looks like that. Why am I giving it a class? Well, I'm going to end up floating that. Since I'm floating my picture to the left, I might be floating this to the right. All right? It's the same stuff we just talked about in class today. All right. And rather than you having to type anything or even putting in lorem, rather, I'm going to go back to what I sent you this morning, which is in first website. And there's a folder called text, and I want page 1, Part01 text. So I'm going to open that in a different editor or in the same editor if you want to. Doesn't matter. There it is. And I'm going to do a Control-A, Control-C so I can copy it. All right. And then I'm just going to take it and put it right there. All right. It looks a little funky. So if I highlight all of that and I hit Tab, I can line it up. Okay. Now, my site looks like this. Again, it still doesn't look very nice, but I just want you to understand what's going on here. Now, please look up on the screen, everybody. Remember, what I said here was, if we go back to the home page, we're floating here. But when we get down to here, we want to turn floating off. We don't want to float anymore. All right? So what we've got left to do is we've got to turn off the floating. We've got to go and put in another paragraph tag and add that other paragraph and then put in our footer. Like that. Then we're done with that page. And I will tell you, the About page will take a second longer, but not much. The other two pages we're just going to be removing stuff. So they're going to, hopefully we'll be done with this by about 11 o'clock. Then we'll have time to at least start on the CSS. All right. Now, if you say I'm listening, I'm sort of comprehending, but I'm really falling behind, then if nothing else, send me an email and I will give you this stuff. I don't care. All right. I know a couple of you have told me that you're more spelling deficient. I was a good speller as a kid, but it's kind of left me as I'm getting older. All right. All I can tell you is take your time. All right. Okay. So we're back. I'm back in here. Okay. So I'm taking for granted everybody's up till this point right here. So now I'm going to put in a div and I'm going to say class equals clearfix. Hopefully you can guess what that's going to do. That's going to turn off my floating. And I'm going to do that in my CSS. Did you hear me? I'm going to do that in my CSS. All right. Couple more things to do and we're done with this page. All right. So I'm going to move that up a little. Now, I'm going to add another paragraph tag. This one again is going to have a class that's equal to first page, just like the other one did. All right. Now, I'm going to go back to here. Remember this thing? We had in here, in the text folder, we had page 1, Part01. Now we want page 1, Part02. So I'm going to open that up. Control-A, Control-C to copy it. And then I'm going to pop that thing right into here. And again, move it over so it looks a little bit nicer. All right. And the last thing I have to do, literally I have to add 3 more lines, and then I'm done with this page. Okay? What are those 3 lines? Well, underneath my paragraph, I want to put in the footer. So I'm going to use a footer tag, not a toofer, a footer tag, footer. All right, I'm not going to give it any class or any ID, but I'm just going to say in a paragraph, copyright, ampersand, copy. Remember, that's that HTML entity, 2021 dash, put your name in there. So I'll put my name in there. I don't know why you'd want to put my name in. Put your own in. Okay? And once I save, I'll come right back to it. This is our first page. Totally unformatted, but that's our first page. Okay? You should be able to, if you were able to catch up, open yours up in Live Server or go back and double click on it, and this is what it should look like. All right. Now I can leave that up there for a second or so. So if you fell a little behind, you can take a look at it.
So you had the two divs, right? That's the
Yes.
ending the
This top div that's right here, this div is starting here, and it takes up the entire document.
okay. So you only have to end that first div?
No, I have to end this one too.
Oh, it's right. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, every div, a div is not a self-closing tag, so you must end it.
Okay. I had an extra one at the bottom.
Okay. All right, so we've got our first page done. Again, a nice time to do a file save. All right. Now, the next page is the about page. Everybody hear me? Now, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just a dork or whatever, but I don't like to copy stuff from within Visual Studio Code. It just never seems to work right for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back out to where my folder is, my MPG is, and I want to make a copy of index.html. So I'm highlighting it. I'm doing a control C to copy and a control V to paste. So I now have index copy. Again, I highlighted the file. I didn't double click it. I single clicked on it to highlight it. I did a control C to copy it and a control V to paste that in. V is in victory. All right. Now I want to change the name. I don't want it to be called index copy. This is going to be about.html. Everybody hear me? That's going to be about. So as of right now, I've got two files in here and they're identical, except one is called index.html and one is called about.html. Everybody with me? All right. So I'm going to make this easy. We're going to do it unbelievably easy. The about page on the one I sent you has got a little more text. We don't need it. It's just another sentence or two. Did you all hear me? So we don't really need that. So what I'm going to do, this literally should take us about 1 minute. I'm going to open up the about, okay? And I'm going to change in here where it says MPG, when you got the pipe sign home, I want that to say about. All right, and where it says miles per gallon website in the header, we can even leave that. So every one of our pages at the top will say miles per gallon website. All right, we could, I suppose change it on one or another, but we're not going to. This is the same. Instead of welcome, how about us? Okay, one more change and guess what? We're done with this page. That is, we don't need the image. So get rid of it. And the page is done. Now, to make sure it works, I'm going to open it in Live Server. And it looks a lot like the other one, except it doesn't have the picture. But notice up on top in my tab, it now says MPG about, and this says about us. All right? And believe it or not, the next two pages are actually simpler than this. We're going to remove almost everything. I just decided we're going to keep this as simple as possible. All right? So what I want you to do is, again, go back to here, and it doesn't matter which one you take. This time I'll take my about, and I'm going to copy that. Control C, Control V, and I'm going to call this one, the third one is mpg.html. So that's what you should call it, mpg.html. All right? And I'm not even going to copy the last one because when I get done with the MPG page, I'm going to copy it to contact because they're almost the same. We literally have to make like one change and it'll be done. All right, so we've now got mpg.html. I'm going to come back into here and I'm going to bring up mpg.html. You should know by now, please look on the screen. Got to change this. Now, it looks kind of weird to say MPG, MPG. We probably could have done that a little better. Keep all this. Instead of about us, we'll just say miles per gallon calculator. Calculator. Then, other than the footer at the bottom of the page, get rid of everything. Did you hear me? We're not even going to put that picture in. We'll put it in later. So I'm going to get rid of both paragraphs, and I'm going to keep the footer. So in other words, that's my whole thing right there. There's my whole body section. Again, I'm going to save, and to make sure it looks okay, I'm going to go back to Open Live Server. That's all I got. And our last page that says contact, the only change, we're going to copy this to contact. We're going to change this from miles per gallon calculator to contact us. Okay? And we'll have all 4 pages. Now look on the screen if you would. Now I can go home, I can go to About, and I can go to MPG. I can't go to Contact yet because we didn't make it. We're going to make that right now. All right? And how am I going to do that? The same way I've been doing it. I'm going to jump back into here, and I'm going to right mouse click. Now I want to copy MPG. So I'm going to highlight MPG, Control C, Control V. I'm going to change the name to Contact. And there's literally one change I have to make. I want to come in here and open up my contact. 2 changes, I'm sorry. This has got to be MPG Contact up in the title. And our H1 will now say Contact Us. If I bring that one up in Live Server, that's what that looks like. So if you look on the screen, please, the MPG page and the contact page look identical, except the MPG page says miles per gallon calculator, and it has MPG in the tag, and contact has contact us here, and the tab says contact. And there's our About page, which is exactly the same as our home page, except it doesn't have the picture. And there's our home page with the picture. All right. So again, if you've fallen behind, just let me know after class and I can send you this stuff. All right. Any questions on what we've done so far? Hopefully it's been at least somewhat straightforward. All right. All right. So we're ready to put in. We're going to actually put in some CSS we don't need, but we'll need it when we actually build the contact page and we build the other pages. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in some CSS, and then I'm going to go look at it again. So we can see what I like about CSS is I tell people it gives you immediate feedback. Some people like that. Some people like, I could care less. Okay, cool. Not a problem. All right, so I'm going to go back into Visual Studio Code. For now, I don't need my index.html file. I'm going to do a file save all. Or just do a file save. And close each one of these. Probably don't even have to do that. But I'm going to save each one just so I'm sure I have them. And I'm going to close them. And after I've done that, I'm going to open up under CSS. All right. I am going to open up my styles.css file. This is the only other file for now that we have to tinker with, so to speak. All right. Now, I think I showed you this before, but just in case I didn't, okay, this is how you put in, try that again, good golly, Jeff. This is how you put comments in a CSS file. You start them with a /*, you end them with a //. Okay? All right. Comment is a kind of a stupid word, so I'm going to put in here global settings. And what am I going to put in there? Well, body. And I'm going to say, I'm going to make the background. I'm going to make the background color gray. If you don't like my choices of colors, come up with your own. Not a problem. Not hurting my feelings any. The color, this is the one that I used, okay? #33, because I was playing with colors one day, 99FF. You can see that it's a blue, all right? So that's going to be the text color. Then we're going to put in the font family. And I'm going to put in, this one will work just fine. Arial, Helvetica, Sans Serif, because I know we all have an Arial font. And we're going to give it a line height so that the paragraphs are spaced a little bit. So I just made it 1.2. We could adjust that if we wanted to. So these are going to be the global settings. Did everybody hear me? Now, I'm going to save again. Please look on the screen. Remember, if I right mouse click, since I'm not in an HTML file, it doesn't let me invoke from here live server. So I've already got live server up and running, and it's not showing. Somebody tell me why it's not showing. We didn't put in our link tag, right? How many link tags do we have? Don't we have 2 of them? We've got normalize and we've got our styles. All right. So probably should have done that earlier. Didn't. Not a problem. We're going to have to make sure we copy this. So for right now, let's just worry about index. So let's go into our index tag. Right under our title, type in link, hit tab, and we'll put in here CSS/ we want to always do normalize first, and then put it in again. So you should be putting in what I've got here in blue on lines 8 and 9. That was my error. We're going to eventually have to copy those 2 lines to the other 3 HTML files. Did everybody hear me? All right. So once you've done that, I'm going to do another Control S to save. Now I'm going to look at it under live server. Yeah, it looks a little bit different, doesn't it? All right. And again, you might say, oh, it's pretty damn ugly. Okay, I'll live with that. Because we have just started doing our CSS. All right. So I'm going to jump back into my CSS file. I can close index.html for now. I'm going to go back into my CSS, and I want my header and my footer to both be styled in the same way. Did you hear me? Now, I can do this. I could do this. I could say header and put a bunch of junk in there, and then say footer and put a bunch of junk in there. That's the dumb way of doing it. Since I want them to be the same, what some people do, and it's up to you, it's a matter of personal choice. Some people put a comma in and put in footer, just like this. I like to give myself some room, so I put them on separate lines. It doesn't matter, is what I'm telling you. All right? So we're going to make a couple settings in here. Background, I'm going to set to that same blue that you saw before, which is #3399FF. All right. My color is going to be white, so that's my text color. And again, you know what? Let's not put in white. Let's put in #FFF or 6 Fs if you'd rather do that. All right. I'm going to put some padding in here so it's spaced out a little. 30 pixels on top and bottom. All right. And 10 pixels for left and right. If you want, you could convert those to rems by dividing each by 16. So the first one would be what? Just about 2 rem. All right, so it'd be like 1.875 rem or something. It's fine the way it is. And then I want to align the text here to have it centered. So text align, center. All right, I'm going to save again with Control S. And now I'm going to look at my page again. Oh, now it's starting to look a little nicer. It isn't fantastic, but it looks a little bit nicer. Now, if I wanted to, I could change the font size of this and make it bigger, correct? We could do that. If you want to do that, that's something you can play with on your own. All right? So, like I said, it's getting there. It's starting. So, I've got the header and the footer, and let's go on. Now, at the beginning here, I said global settings, right? And I actually missed something. So, I'm going to put it in right now. And that is, what did we call the div at the top of the body section? Anybody remember? We called it container. So technically, since everything is inside of container, container is really a global setting. See what I'm saying? Because everything is in it. So above my header, I'm going to just open up a line and I'm going to put in here pound container. Now, just so you know, if you go out to a professional website and you look at their CSS, a lot of times they've got stuff sprayed all over the place. If you start with good habits right now by putting stuff together that logically belongs together, it's that much easier to do it like that as you keep going. All right? So I'm going to make some changes here. I did a width. Don't ask me why, but instead of rems, I used ems. I don't know why, but I put 60 ems. Margin, 0 auto, which means I want to center this on the page. The background is going to be pound 4 zeros F9. And the color will be white. All right. So that's these right here. If you notice in lines 1 through 14, those are my global settings. They're going to be like that on every page. That's why I put them in a section that said global. All right. All right. Now, some people would not like the way that I did the header and the footer because they want their header stuff and they want their footer stuff. See what I'm saying? If I've got anything that's specific to the header, I normally put it in a section called header. If I've got something specific to a footer, I normally put it in a section called footer. All right? Why am I telling you that? Because now I'm going to come in here and I am going to set something up just for the header. All right? So for just for the header, I'm going to put in here what? Well, what I want to set up in here for the header, let me hit enter a couple times here to move that out of the way. So, all right. I'm going to give it a font size. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I wrote this about a year ago, and I must have been playing with M's and Rems, but I did all this in M's instead of Rems. I don't know why. All right, but I said 2M. All right. And that's almost all I'm going to have for my header in there. So underneath that, I put in header and footer. And there's that stuff. And then underneath that, I'm going to put in footer. All right, we still got a ways to go. Would you all agree with me? The footer goes on the bottom of the page. Would everybody agree with that? So my footer stuff, I'm going to put other stuff above this. I like that to be down at the bottom. Like I said, I've got some rhyme and reason to what I'm doing. So for the footer, it's going to be almost like the header. I'm going to put a different number in there, but it's going to be almost like the header. So I'm going to put in here for the footer, and I want that to be smaller. So instead of 2 M's, I'm only going to make it 0.5 M's. Because typically your footer is smaller. You don't have to do that. But that's typically the way that it's done. I'm going to save, and I'm going to go back and take a look again. Oops, with the wrong page. Now notice my header is bigger, but I did it with CSS. My background has changed, my background color, and my footer is smaller. Okay, and you should be able to kind of correlate and see what we did to do each one of those things. All right. All right, so going back then, above the footer, but underneath where I put header and footer, all right, this is going to be my Navbar section. This is going to be my navigation bar, my menu, whatever you want to call it. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do it almost exactly the way they did it in the book. I'm going to say nav ul. And for that nav ul, I'm going to give it a background that's white. I'm going to give it a list style type of none. What does that do?
It takes the outline here.
You're on the right track. It removes the dots. All right. I want no margin. When you set something to 0 for margin and padding, you don't have to say 0 pixels or 0 rem because 0 is 0. Did you all hear what I said? All right. Now, I'm not going to see maybe much difference. Look on the screen if you would. Just the background changed. Remember, I did not do that display inline. So they're still displaying block. Everybody with me? All right. So we have now done the nav ul. So the next thing to do is the nav ul-li. And it's a little redundant, but I'm going to make, just to be sure, I'm going to make sure that, I don't even have to do that, forget it. I'm going to set a width, and I set the width to 59M. I can't tell you how I got these numbers because, like I said, I did it a while ago. I'm going to say display, inline, and margin 5.625 M's. Now, you're all very trusting, so let me look and make sure. See that? So that's what we just did. All right. And what's left to do in there? Well, when I get to the nav ul-lia, I want to say text decoration, none. I want those underlines to disappear. Any questions on that? So if I save and look at it again, now see what I have? Okay. Now look on the screen. This is kind of important. Since I didn't add my CSS, my link tags to the other pages, you may have done that already. I didn't. So it still looks like that. So I've got one page that's not looking too bad, but the other ones look terrible still. All right. They'll be fine as soon as we add those link tags to the other page. All right.
Can you show me the link tags again? I think I screwed that up.
The link tags, you mean in the
index page? I think I'm not sure what I did. I just wanted to look at how you added whatever. Or is that for the CSS link tags?
No, this is for the nav bar. Isn't that what you were asking for?
Well, for the CSS. So I got all the CSS.
Oh, you mean in the styling?
Yeah. Sorry.
What do you want?
So I got that. I mean the link in the index page that links the CSS styles. You know what I mean?
Oh, I got you. That is in here. You mean this?
Yes.
We're going to have to put these on all of our pages.
It goes.
All right. In fact, I can do that now and bring up each page and do it while you're looking at it. Okay. So let me bring up the about, and I can put it there. Save. I can bring up the contact and bring it there and save. And I can bring up the MPG and again put it there and save. Now I should be able to close MPG and contact and about, and now I should have a nicer looking site. There's that, and there's that. Okay. Now, don't worry and say, well, there's a lot of room where we're putting stuff in there in a little bit, okay? Okay. Hopefully everybody's got a chance, has had a chance to catch up. Now, the next thing that's in here, on every page, I think you'd agree, every page has an H1 tag. Every page has an H1 tag. I'm not asking you that, I'm telling you that. Every page has an H1 tag. So, the next thing that I put in something for was the H1 tag. Now, that's not a header, that's not a footer, so I just literally come in here and I'm going to say H1 tag. You don't have to do this. A lot of people would say I'm over commenting. I'm telling you, a lot of people would say that. You're putting in too many comments. Okay, I'll live with that, hopefully. And I'm going to put in an H1. And I gave it a font size of 1.75 ems. One thing you could do, because you're going to get some time to work on this yourselves, is change all those ems to rems and see if it looks any different. All right. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to set the paragraphs. Okay. So there's my H1 tag, and this will be my P tags. All right, so for my paragraph, there's about 4 things I said here. First, 3 things. I set the font size, and I set it to 1.25 ems. Then I gave it a margin of 10 pixels. Then I gave it a line height so it was spread out a little bit of 1.5. Now, I'm coming right back to it, but look, the paragraphs are a little more spaced out now. You see this? They look a little bit nicer, in my opinion, for whatever my opinion is or isn't worth. All right? You could play with this stuff and make it do anything you wanted it to do. All right? So that was the H1 and the P tag. All right? Now, we only have about 20 or so lines to go. If you don't mind, I'd like us to finish this. And even if you fall behind, it's okay. It really and truly is okay. I just want you to know that. But what we'll do, in fact, we'll do it the first thing tomorrow. We'll push this out to GitHub so you can see it. That way, if you did fall behind and you need me to send you anything or whatever, or if you've got questions, we'll have a few minutes left at the end of class. All right? Okay, so remember that I had a thing that you may or may not remember, that I called first page. All right, I had that class for the paragraphs that was called first page. All right, so this will be my first page. And again, these comments aren't the greatest of comments, but dot first page, I just gave it some margin all the way around of 20 pixels. Now, please look on the screen here, everybody. Just stop typing, look on the screen. All right. I have not saved yet. So here's what it looks like now. Get that, as they say, in your mind's eye. Okay? Right there. Now, I'm going to come back to here, and I am going to save. And then I'm going to bring it up again. And hopefully you can see it's moved over a little bit. All right? The space between it, not much. I could add padding. And that would have probably been a better thing to add because you would have probably been able to see it a little better. All right? Play with that. Change the margin to padding yourselves. This is a play site. That's all this is meant to be. All right? All right, so after first page, I had that home picture. So that's on here also. That was pound home picture. This is the first time we get to play with this. Float left. And I don't know why I did this, but I put a width and a height in there. I don't ever do that, but I did here. So width 200, height 200. I don't know why I did that, but there may be a reason for it, so I'm just going to keep it in there. All right. Now, please look up on the screen here. It's already looking more the way that it's supposed to look. Now, yours is going to look this big because I've got mine blown up. I'm at 225%. So yours won't look, if I knock it down to 100%, it's going to look like that. But I figured it'd be easier, bless you, for you to see if I bumped it up a bit. All right, so I did. But you can see the floating there. All right, now this is going to work fine. We're not going to have to worry much about clear fix and whatever because there's not much on this page. But the more stuff you put in, the more important it is that when you should do a clear fix, you do a clear fix. So that's what we're going to do now. Now, I could put, I think you'd agree, I could put clear fix right here. Couldn't I? I could put it right there. What clear fix is, don't look, but listen. What clear fix is, more or less, it's a utility program. And in other words, I'm setting it up. It's something I could use site-wide, correct? So what I like to do with stuff like that is put it up at the top, and under my global settings, I like to put in utilities. All right, and here I'm going to put in .clearFix. That's the name of the class. And literally all it has in it is clear both. That's the whole thing. I put it right under my container. Again, I'm telling you the way I'm doing. I'm not trying to take what I do and shove it down your throats. I'm not. If you don't like the way that I've set stuff up, if you think it's over commented, or you don't like the order in which I put things, you can change it so that it looks the way you want it to look. I'm not offended at all by you doing that. All right, we're getting to the end here. Okay, now we don't have that MPG. We do not have the MPG image. That MPG image we don't have it in there. You know what I'm saying? But I want to account for it anyway because we're going to add it. So under home picture, I'm going to put in my stuff for MPG image. That's a class, it will be, that's called MPG image. All right. I'm going to want to float that to the left as well. Again, I don't know why, but I gave it a width and a height. And in fact, you really shouldn't say 200. You should say pixels there because that is PX, because that's what it is. PX. Sorry about that. And I'll put it here, and I'll put it here as well. PX and PX. All right. And I'm going to give it some margin. And it's going to be 0 on the top, 15 pixels. Could have used 1 rem there. It would have been close enough. On the left, on the right, 10 pixels on the bottom, and 0 pixels on the left. So there's that. All right. What we're going to have, the rest of the stuff that's in here, there's not much. There's literally about a little more than 10 lines. It's going to be all the stuff that we're going to end up putting. If you look, let's see, let me bring this up so you can see it. On our, I think it's on the MPG page. All right. We're going to have to do some formatting on there. Right now, all it has is MPG, right? Or whatever we put in, or I guess we put in miles per gallon calculator. But I'm going to put in a little bit of CSS so that when we add stuff to it later, that CSS will already be there. We won't have to go back and do it. And there's not very much. There really and truly is not. There's not much left in this program here. So I'm going to come in here. And in fact, this was the MPG image. I'll put a comment here that says, oops, MPG page. Okay. And under the image, I'm going to put in here OLLI. There's going to be an ordered list in there. And I'm just going to give it a line height of 2.5 em and a margin of, not a line height, line 8, line height, and a margin of 5 pixels. Okay. On our contact page is going to have labels on it. Does that make sense? It'll have a label that'll ask you to put in the miles driven, etc. So I'm going to make one more thing down here that says contact page. All right, and for my label, any label that's on there, I'm going to want to dink with that a little bit, 4 or 5 things. Display inline block. We'll talk about what that means when we get to where we put that in there. Width 150 pixels, text align center, padding right, and padding bottom. I did it as 2 things. You could have done it as 1. I did it as 2. All right. Then finally, on this page, there will be a submit button, which I conveniently gave it an ID called submit. And I gave it a margin left of 350 pixels. Again, it'll make sense when you see it in there. And you don't have to do this, but if you want it to look a little rounded, we'll put a border radius in there. And I'll put in 8 pixels. All right. Finally, last thing, 3 lines. We're done. 3 lines and we're done. Look on the screen if you would, please. Where is it? Oh, I don't have it up there. Okay. You may or may not be able to tell, but these are red. What's going to happen is if eventually when we get to the JavaScript portion of the class, if you put something non-numeric in here, or you put something out of range like a negative number, there's going to be a message that's going to print here. I want that message to be red, and I want it to be bold. Okay? So the last thing I'm going to put in here, like I said, I promise, this is it. All right? And that is, I'm going to put in span, because it's the only span I have in here. And I'm going to put color red and font weight bold. All right? Now, I'm done for now, but what I'm going to ask you to do, I'll do the first one, but I'm going to ask you to do the rest. Do you remember when we went out here and we typed in HTML validator? All right. I'm going to bring up the validator for HTML. I'm going to click. In fact, I'll just do that by file upload. I'll choose a file. I'll say it's an MPG. I'll just do the index one. That's fine. And click check. And it's okay. Now, if yours had any errors in it, go fix them, right? And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the CSS validator. All right, that's the jigsaw one. And again, I'll do it by file input. And this time I'll go to CSS and I will do the style one because that's mine. Click check and that's okay. So right now I know that what I have, it may not be a great looking website. I'll cut it down. Let's cut it there. It's 150% right there. But it works. I can navigate from page to page. I'm by no means done. All right. I'm not going to ask because if I said right now, is anybody falling behind or having trouble? Because if it's one person, you might feel bad, or you might not even want to raise your hand. And I get that. I do. So tomorrow, what we will do, we've got everything keyed in. We're going to push this up to GitHub tomorrow. All right. And if I have time tonight, I hate to promise stuff and then not do it. But what I'm gonna go back and look. I did a couple lectures last year, not for you guys, but I did it in this class last year. There's a thing called GitHub Pages. We can actually push this thing out to the internet. All right. It's not going to look fantastic because this page isn't done and this page isn't done. But we'll have something you can actually, if you wanted to show it to somebody. Now, please look on the screen. Start thinking about how you could fix this. First of all, I don't know if you agree or not, the contact us should be moved over. All right. And if that should be moved over, so should the MPG, so should the about us, so should the welcome. All of those should be moved over. Now, the good news is, and you can do this, but you don't have to, it's a simple fix. Those are our H1s, right? So we've got font size here. So what if we just came in, I don't know, let's try margin left. Let's try 1 rem for something different in here. All right. And now I'm going to go back and look at it. It's pushed over. Well, that isn't enough, Jeff. Then push it over some more. If you want it centered, you can do a text-align center. All right? So there's a lot of different ways this could be fixed. That wasn't the idea behind this. The idea behind this was to just give you, just have you build a simple site. All right? Please make sure before you finish, all right, that you'll go back and save everything. All right. Now, most of the stuff auto saves anyway, but it's better safe than sorry. This morning, I kind of gasped because my insurance agent, my wife was in a car accident about 3 weeks ago, not her fault. She got hit from behind and they pushed her into somebody else and totaled her car. And we got a bunch of stuff from the insurance agent yesterday, and I thought I'd removed it. My wife said, make sure you get that printed out and given back to me today. The printer I have at home, I got to buy another one. It's a piece of garbage. So I went to print it out this morning, and I couldn't find it. I thought I hadn't saved it. Then I thought, you know what, I saved it. I accidentally removed it. So I sent them a message. It was 5:30 in the morning, so there was no one there. Sent them a message, and then I looked, and here I'd saved it under another account. So I sent them another message. Never mind. All right. But the bottom line is this. Save early, save often. All right. Now, not any specific questions, but does anybody have any questions generally on what we did and how we did it? If you have individual questions, again, I have absolutely no problem. If anybody in here, I don't care who you are. If anybody wants to email me and say, I fell behind, what I'll do is I'll zip that file and I'll just send it to you. I don't care. All right. So if that's the case, just email me and say, please send me the zip file, and I'll do that. All right. I'll zip it right now, just in case anyone does. Send to compressed. So there it is. So you'll get that in a couple minutes. All right. But you've got a little bit of time, not much, 15 more minutes in class. So if you want to, just take a look. All right. Now, you really don't need to keep your github.com open. You won't need to do that. So you can close that if you need to. Tomorrow morning, though, before we push this out to GitHub, maybe we'll do this. We'll push it out to GitHub. We won't put it to GitHub pages until we finished it. Then we'll put it in GitHub pages. But we'll push this out to GitHub tomorrow. I will show you all of the commands, and we will do it nice and slow so you can see exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing. All right? So I'm going to stop the tape right now, and I did tape this. It's been over an hour now. So, yeah, you probably need a break. So if you need to step out before class ends, go ahead. Not hurting my feelings any. All right, the only thing I'm supposed to tell you is if I give you a 10-minute break, that's what you're supposed to take. Usually I give 12 to 15 minutes, something like that, depending on when we close or end. But I know that last semester, I'm not even going to say who it was because he's still a student and is doing very well. But we had a student who would take a break and, he worked late at night. I get it. So typically when they had their first break, sometimes he'd almost fall asleep in the lounge. So because sometimes he'd come wandering in after about a half an hour. Well, it just so happened that he was seen down there by another instructor, and I got called to the carpet for that. I told it to him, and it was never an issue again. All right.